right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 1 p.m. Central Time, so I appreciate, Andrew, you taking time out of your afternoon to speak with us today. So for those of you joining us, feel free to pop mute on. What's going to happen is I'm going to give an intro of Andrew, and then I'm going to let Andrew take it away and talk about effective emailing and how to maximize potential to get a response, as well as how to take advantage of learning about an employer before doing outreach. So Andrew, thank you for joining us. Andrew is an executive producer at Firstborn, a design and technology agency based in New York City. He graduated Vanderbilt in the class of 2010 with a communication studies major and minors in Chinese and corporate strategy. Over the past 10 years, Andrew has built a career at the intersection of digital production and client partnership. He's a leader of highly effective and cross-functional team that produce award-winning transformational work for brands such as Beats, Apple, S&P Global, Nike, and Google. Andrew is also a self-expression and leadership coach and competitive Olympic weightlifter. He's currently living in Brooklyn, New York. So with that, Andrew, would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself as well as your story?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, it's great to be with you all. Thanks for you guys being on camera. It's nice to see faces. Yeah, I'm on Zoom all day long, so it's nice just when people go on. So yeah, I graduated 10 years ago, as Paul said, and I was really thinking about where I am now and where I was 10 years ago when I was graduating. I really wanted to get reconnected with Vanderbilt and the alumni network, and I was chatting with Penny and Paul and really discovering what is a value that I would be able to provide you guys. And effective email communication is so critical, especially now where we can't just go out and meet someone for a coffee, maybe like we used to be able to. So effective email communication is key. So as executive producer, I'll talk a little bit about what that means, but I kind of see it as like executive communicator. And I'll explain a little bit more about what's required. So let's dive right in. Let me just share my screen really quick. All right. Can you guys see? All right, hold on one second. Just gotta. 1 second, guys. I got the, this thing is in the way. Okay. All the like Zoom things were all over the presentation and they're hard to move in your presentation mode. All right, so emailing effectively. Seminar intentions. So we'll go over that really quick, what I hope you guys will gain out of this seminar. It's interactive, so please, like it's a conversation. I really want you guys to get this. It's not get like a concept. It has to make sense in your life and how you guys communicate and how you approach the challenge. So please open up for questions anytime. There are a few points during it where I'll kind of ask for feedback and questions like that. So please feel free to participate. Quick spiel, I'll give you a little more information about me and why I'm here doing this, what I do, explaining that in case you guys find it of interest and want to get connected in design and technology firms in New York, across the world. We can certainly do that. And then we'll get to the meat of the presentation, which is really kind of brass tacks about emailing effectively. We'll take a look at some bad emails, and I'll give you a little bit of the secret sauce that I use to coach my producers in effective communication, and I'll share that with you guys. And then we'll open the floor at the end for Q&A. So seminar intentions, what I hope that you get from this. Simply just to provide tools for transforming email communications to increase your effectiveness, improve response rates, and ultimately get to that yes. So quick spiel, Paul set it up before, but I graduated as a BA in 2010. I majored in communication studies, Chinese and corporate strategy. I studied abroad in China and Shanghai. Absolutely loved it. And I'm so glad that I did, because now all the challenges with China that are happening right now, I really understand it. And you're really kind of able to get yourself out of what it's like to be raised in America and put yourself into what it must be like to be raised in China and how just different it is. I currently live in Brooklyn. I moved to New York right after I graduated and haven't left in 10 years. Some other fun facts about me: I'm a competitive Olympic weightlifter. I'm on a weightlifting team in Brooklyn, and I do competitions as well. The past few months has been hard. I've been doing it in my apartment on Zoom with my trainers, so not lifting so much heavy weight because I have a very old apartment, as you can see, but yeah, it's been fun. And the cool thing is to just have a coach who's able to kind of help you get through this process. And I'm also a self-expression and leadership coach. So about 10 years ago, when I was a senior, I had 2 conversations with alums that shifted the course of my life. It was 2009, and we were in a recession. Very few organizations were hiring, and the job market in New York City was brutally competitive. One of the reasons that I moved to China was that I thought I was going to have to get a job in China because I just was not going to get a job in the States. The 2 alums that I spoke to helped create the opportunity for me to interview and ultimately get a job at RGA, which was awarded Digital Agency of the Decade in the 2000s. I was hired as a production assistant. I made coffee, I archived projects onto CDRs, which is like from the Stone Ages, and I prep pitch meeting rooms. Basically, I did all the things that nobody else wanted to do. But I was happy because I got my foot in the door. I made the connections needed to build a career in digital production. And I'll explain a little bit what digital production means in a second in case anybody doesn't know. Looking back, I now fully grasp the power of those conversations, which is why I'm chatting with you guys here today. What I've discovered is that anything can be created through communication. So what's an executive producer? So I said before, it's kind of like an executive communicator. So in every movie you've seen, you've always seen executive producer, executive producer, executive producer. What does that actually mean? What is that person doing? Well, they're the glue that brings the whole thing together. And there's a reason that they go on before the actors, because without the executive producer, the thing doesn't get taken off the ground. So they own all the relationships with all the different aspects required to bring the movie together. So an executive digital producer or an executive producer for digital is the same thing, except the medium shifts. We're no longer making films, we're now making products and services, apps and tools and websites for the internet. So it's brand new in like the scheme of things, but the field basically started about 15 years ago when websites moved to the next level, when there was a whole design layer and an experience layer and analytical layer. So that's where this career path in digital production was born. A lot of people look at all of the things on the internet and they're not quite sure how they get there. Well, there's a whole army, militia of people behind it that make that possible, from software engineers to designers to copywriters to strategists and analysts, and a whole team of people that put all that together. So the executive producer's job is to get the whole team together and organize the team and deliver on what the client has asked. Any questions on what an executive producer is? Cool. So the first stop on that train was the production assistant. And so, you know, that's where you start at the way bottom and you slowly build your way up. So what I've been working on since 2018 is a project for Apple. Apple bought Beats 6 years ago, and they had a big problem. The problem was that everyone thought that Beats was poorly made, expensive products. Well, that's not aligned with Apple's mission statement and their vision. So they hired my agency to shift that, and we used education to shift that brand perception. So we focused all in on product training. So when Apple purchased Beats, they put their product team on Beats to make the products technologically advanced, sound great, use the best materials, be sustainable, all of that. And so they wanted to make sure that that product communication got out into the world, not through a snazzy campaign with LeBron or Serena Williams, but through actual work. So this is what that work looks like. We have a suite of apps and tools that live at the Apple Store, at Best Buy, or at airports. And it's a whole web platform as well that we use to train a global sales force. So really, really exciting project. really exciting client. Before COVID, I was back and forth to LA every week. Apple is very, very hands-on. They either do in-person or iMessage. There's not much in between. But now, in light of COVID, we've really kind of shifted and now moved on to Zoom, and we're able to be just as effective. So this is what I do. We've won lots of awards and recognition for design transformation, service digitization, visual design. So really exciting. And why I love this type of work is that we get to work hand in hand with the Apple product designers. So we get to understand why they created certain features. So for example, for PowerBeats Pro, they have something called ambidextrous design where you're actually able to use one while one is charging. So lots and lots of thought went into how they designed the product. And my agency's vision is how can we create digital tools to communicate that? So Beats Tempo would not be possible without effective communication. The whole thing is communication. That is why we got hired, to use design to communicate a message that they want to communicate. So that is the kind of whole stage of where we are. So now let's kind of start way back at the beginning before we create all that and get started emailing effectively. So here's an email that I hope none of you ever receive. And first off, I hope you are well. So let's take a minute, and I'd love to hear from a few of you what jumps out as being ineffective or not really strong with this email.
So for me, I would say the person didn't introduce themselves in the first place. So it's hard to know who this is coming from.
Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Yeah. First off, who are you? Right? So absolutely. Yep. No introduction. And no thank you, for sure. Anything else you guys see as funky?
I think the grammatic structure isn't very professional. There's so many sentences that begin with I, and then it began with a false narrative, and it's about me right now, and I need your help.
Beautiful. Couldn't have said it better. It's all about me and what I need. Who wants to respond to that? Not me. Anybody else?
Andrew, I'll share. I'm not a fan of "I am just," that phrase. What do you think about that, Andrew?
I love it. Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about word choice, but just is not a powerful word to use in your email communications. I am just trying. Well, how about you just do? And don't discredit anything. Trying isn't a great word either, because you either do it or don't do it, like Yoda, right? Don't try. And just is like, I'm just trying. It's super soft and it's super not powerful. So, yep, this email, guys, was really hard for me to write. The hairs on my neck stood up putting this together. So, anything else? So, yep, sentence and grammatical structures is no good. No introduction, no thank you. I am just is ineffective. What else, guys?
We have a message in the chat. Let's see. Naira, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing your name. Naira says, I think maybe it would have been better if he asked the questions instead of waiting for you to respond to sending the questions.
Awesome.
In the second to last sentence, it's almost atrocious that they use I for the last time and haven't capitalized it.
Just lazy. Also, my biggest pet peeve, sent from my iPhone. No good. Doesn't matter if you send it from your iPhone. Just don't say that you sent it from your iPhone. There's also something about the tone here. But unfortunately, nothing has really worked. It's uninspiring.
One thing that I want to point out as well, kind of to Naira's point, you're playing your cards too quickly. there's nothing left. So you read this email and you get the whole story. So it seems as though if responding, it would be very transactional, one-sided. You respond with the answers, and that's the end of the conversation. So nothing to work with there.
Yeah, and it leaves you like, what do you want from me? Like when you read this, guys, it kind of makes you feel like a little uncomfortable. It's like, I get you're bummed out, but like maybe it's not such a bad time for everyone. It's a profoundly different time than anyone could ever of us imagine in our wildest dreams, but it's sort of the reality of what's happening right now. So, you know, I'm not saying put a positive spin on everything, but if you're looking to network and you're looking for people to respond and to be effective, don't unload your dirty laundry on somebody else. Cool. Just a couple little odds and ends that I want to call out. I hope to hear from you soon. This lives in the world of someday. We don't want to be in someday. We want clear deadlines. We'll talk a little bit about that. And also just like, it's one giant paragraph. So you're kind of like skimming it and you're like scratching your head, what does Sam want? So we'll talk a little bit more about how we can just reorganize and restructure a little bit. So ultimately, guys, less is more. Email communication is very different than writing papers in class. Word count, page count, long paragraphs, narratives will not get you the responses you're after. In business communication and networking, less is more. So your challenge is, how do you communicate as much meaning as possible in as few words as possible? So that's what we're going to talk about now. So the first part of what I'll call the secret sauce is get into the world of the receiver. So somebody called out the amount of I's in the previous email. It was all about Sam and Sam's problems and why things aren't working out for Sam and blah, 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 blah. Someone's just going to delete it. So first step is to get the world of the receiver and plan to write the email that you would want to receive. So what I do when I sit down to write a client email or something of that nature, I really kind of envision myself as them receiving the email. You can pretend for a moment that you're actually that person. Use this contact methodology for approaching your writing, because this way you'll be able to get out of the I, out of your personal goals and objectives, and get outside of what you want to get from them and focus more on them. It will allow you to create opportunity for them to be more positive and more inspiring. And always, always begin from a place of gratitude and expect nothing in return. You never know. People are busy, but if you follow the steps and you know, write the email effectively, your probability of getting responses will be higher, but don't expect that. And that's where a lot of people get tripped up and bummed out and disheartened, and they kind of just, well, see, nobody wants me. And that's not the case. You got to keep fishing. Establish relatedness. So basically, you got to know what you're talking about. Determine what's shared between you and the receiver. So if it's a company and you're doing blind outreach, research the company. Take a look at recent news articles. That's probably the best place to start. Take a look at their Twitter, Instagram. Take a look at how they communicate, how they reach out to their customers, and how they talk. You can start to understand the company almost as a person. If you're reaching out to a person, establish a relatedness. So for us, our shared relatedness is that we went to Vanderbilt together. We could be communication studies majors. We could live in Nashville. Lots and lots and lots of background relatedness. But this is really important. It doesn't even need to be explicit. It could be a shared experience, just like quarantine, coronavirus is a shared experience, hot weather, anything is workable. Establishing relatedness makes the communication more personal, which then leads to more responses. Because if I actually feel you as a human, well, imagine if it was just the two of us together. I would respond to you if we were having an actual conversation. Email communication is the same way. If you're here's all the things that aren't working for me and here's what I need from you, they're gonna be like, But if you ask about someone's kids or someone's situation, or then all of a sudden you're playing a whole new game. Clarity. So avoid attempting to prove your credibility or smarts by using big words or lots of words. Keep it simple. The KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. That doesn't mean try and sound stupid, just keep it simple. If you're not able to explain it simply, maybe delete the paragraph. You don't have to be too precious about anything. The hope is that you'll have future communications where you can start to get more granular, get in more detail. The first communication, you don't have to kill them with the detail. Leverage lists, bullets, paragraphs, no more than 2 or 3 sentences per paragraph. A reader should be able to skim the email quickly, get to the gist of what you're trying to say, and know right off the bat, what do you need from me? What are you requesting? And by when are you requesting it? Include a call to action or request in your email. Stay focused around that request and do not meander. Offer dates and times to put something into existence. So in the first email, there was lots of meandering, lots of stream of consciousness questions. All of that's great, but do that on the phone. Cool. Any questions on clarity? This is the big one. And again, if you can't explain it simply, don't explain it or try it a new way. But if you try and use tons and tons of words to explain a scientific method about something like you're writing a literature paper, it's just not going to be effective.
I just have one quick question.
Yeah, please, Scott.
So I was always debating whether to include like times or not, because like I wasn't sure if like came off as like pushy or not. But could you just like speak to that a little bit? Like if you're like asking someone for like a little bit of their time.
Yep. So pushy is in the tone. I would much prefer someone throw out some times, because then I can look at my calendar right there, set something in, say, let's do this time, this time. We're already locked in 2 email exchanges. If I'm doing outreach, I tend to give a range. So I'm available next Thursday and Friday between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. Let them pick. Always put your time zone. But yeah, I would say in a cold outreach, and you're sending your resume, I would give them some times. It's honestly more professional.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and I'll show you later in the presentation on what that could look like. So it's not awkward, you know? You wanna make it so it's easier for them.
Yeah, I kind of want to touch on that last point, Andrew, if I may. For them, so that's the name of the game. The amount of emails that you can get your point across. So if you can get a time scheduled in 1 to 2 emails, great. Less work for the employer. They can get back to their day-to-day. You can plug it into your Excel sheet, your Outlook calendar, whatever's easier for them.
Yep. And maybe round 2, we can talk about calendars and existence systems. All right. Clarity. Be human. So this is my favorite. And when producers first joined my team, their communication style isn't them. They're trying to be something else. They're trying to be either overly professional or overly didactic, or, you know, it takes a little bit of time to let your personality shine. But my personal recommendation to you is to do that, is to communicate like you're communicating with, you know, somebody in your family that you're close to. It's more conversational, it's lighter, it's clear. Nobody wants to respond to an email from Alexa or Siri. Your personality is what makes you unique, so use it professionally in your emails. This takes some practice. Don't use slang, you know, like you have to obviously be aware of how you're communicating, but if there's a lightness and there's a personality that's shining through your email where they can really hear you as a human being, that leads to more responses. But, you know, the robotic or almost templated emails are kind of like, you know, is this even to me or are you a bot? So we really, really, really want to avoid that. Don't be afraid to be human and allow your personality to differentiate you from other folks in the pack. Are there any questions about this one? This one should make you a little bit uncomfortable. This one takes time. Cool. The next is word choice. So as Penny called out earlier, she just can't stand when you say, I'm just trying. Well, I can't stand that either. Your words are important. Unlike a conversation, emailing is an ideal opportunity to actually pick the perfect word to communicate whatever and however you want. Avoid verbal filler, redundancy, drama, and reductive language. Substitute but with and avoid words like just, maybe, and unfortunately. Don't ever start an email with unfortunately, blah, 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 delete. It's never unfortunately, it's just what it is, you know? So this is a really, really good one. I like to see if I can use and instead of but. Sometimes but is reductive, like it's a linguistic construct that actually limits the previous clause. And you don't always have to do that. It can be A and B. It doesn't have to be A instead of B. But it's almost automatic that we tend to use but a lot. So just try that on and see if it works. Sometimes it's awkward, but sometimes it's very expansive. Just, we talked about that one earlier. It's horrible. I use it if I'm purposely trying to be soft and meek. You can use just, but use it strategically. If you feel like you went in a little too harsh and heavy hitting, you can use just to dial things back a little bit. Maybe, it's just not powerful. And unfortunately, we talked a little bit about. There's more, but these are the kind of real flagship ones that they when I see them, they like jump off the screen at me. So if you can avoid them, avoid these. And lastly, the next step. Always have a path forward and keep all doors open. Even if you didn't get the job or they didn't respond to you or the position's already been filled or we're not hiring or we're not doing our internship program this year, whatever the reality may be, you can always respond with the simple notion of the paths crossing again. It's really cool because sometimes your paths do cross again. My Olympic weightlifting coach used to work for my current boss now. She fired him. He was a horrible producer and project manager. He's an amazing Olympic weightlifting coach. But I have both of them basically as my coach, and I'm so fortunate. But yeah, we have a laugh about it. So I'm sharing that story with you because you never know how paths cross again. And of course, my boss let him go with grace. And so, you know, there's no bad feelings. And he acknowledged, he's like, I was awful. I didn't want to be, you know, working in an office. I want to be lifting weights in a gym. Well, it's a very different field. So you never know how paths will cross again, and they will cross again. So always keep the door open. Drop the anchor and be sure you follow up and stay in integrity around those dates and deadlines. Don't be afraid to follow up. Don't think that you're being annoying. I genuinely appreciate when people follow up with me. I have a lot going on, a lot of emails, a lot of meetings, and sometimes things just slip my mind. It's not a personal thing. There's just too many things. So I really appreciate it, especially for if a Vanderbilt student reaches out to me and they need to follow up, it's great. And if they follow up, if you guys follow up and the person who probably wasn't going to give you the time of day now is going to give you the time of day, because they realize they dropped the ball on something. So you can always use that to your advantage. You have nothing to lose by following up. I'll say that again. You have nothing to lose by following up. Your ego and confidence and all of that, just put that aside, because your most important thing is that you get the call, you get the responses, and hopefully get the interview.
Just another example of being human. Sorry, Andrew.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, following up is just showing another example of being human. And that you're very genuinely interested in what they do, interested in a conversation with them. So going that extra step to try to get on the phone with them.
And how would you recommend?
Go ahead, Scott.
How would you recommend staying relevant without being annoying? In terms of like, you spoke to someone who you know works at, you know, a firm that like you're interested in, and like you speak to them for an informational interview, and like you don't actually want something from them, but like you just want them to like remember your name, remember that you spoke like every like few months or so.
I got it. So great question. I'm going to answer it in a few ways. If you want to keep people warm, that's fine. Keeping people warm is great. The coaching and training that I want to give you guys is when you do actually want something, when there is a request and you are actually looking for the next thing. And if that's the case, I would stay relevant by staying relevant. I would include a news story. I would include something that you thought about or discovered since the initial outreach, something came to mind. I would bring one piece of new value to the conversation.
Thank you.
And that way you're like honestly not wasting their time. You're actually getting more researched about what you're actually requesting and you're super clear about it. And if you present something to them that they didn't know or wasn't aware of, then boom, you got your background of relatedness locked in. You'll get the call scheduled. You're now memorable. You're in.
Thank you.
Great. Don't get aggravated if people don't respond. You know, I said this before, but stay in integrity. So integrity, as the definition that I'm using it, is be a person of your word by when you said you were going to do it, the way in which it was meant to be done. It does not mean you're a bad person if you fall out of integrity. But if you say that I'll check in with you next week, be sure to check in with them next week. Don't just disappear. Don't ghost. You know, it's important. And when you're years from now on the other side of the fence and someone's reaching out to you, stay in integrity around it, around the dates. If dates shift, if something comes up, you have an emergency, it's all good. Again, everything can be created in communication. So again, don't get aggravated. People don't respond. It happens all the time. Clients don't respond to me all the time. If I took everything personally, I would still not be on this planet right now. It takes time to be able to be with that. But it truly is nothing personal to you. In fact, it likely has nothing to do with you at all and has everything to do with your communication. Your communication is not you. You are you. Your communication can be trained and evolved. So that's really exciting. So if you're not getting a response, you can be like, well, is it how I'm communicating? Is it that just this person's really busy? Could be a million things, but ultimately don't get aggravated. On to the next. Always, 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 always say thank you. Be patient yet persistent. You can never say thank you too many times. Great. So just to kind of the cliff notes of everything that we went over. Context. Get the world of the receiver and write the email that you would want to get. So if you're going to tell an employer you're not interested in that particular job, make sure you send the email that you would want to receive. If you were the one hiring, you took another job, great. Don't just not respond to the other people. And don't start with unfortunately either. Let them know about what your passions are and why you made that selection. And always keep the path open because you never know. Establish relatedness. Identify something shared between you and the receiver. The more relatedness, the higher the chance you will get a reply. Clarity. Be crystal clear with your requests and calls to action. No long paragraphs, no eggshells, no beating around the bush, none of that funny business. Be human. Show your personality and self-express professionally. Word choice. Avoid verbal filler, redundancy, as well as but, maybe, just, and unfortunately. And lastly, and most importantly, the next step. Drop the anchor, be persistent yet patient. Don't take a lack of response personally. So with all of that context, this is really offensive now. So what would it look like if Sam emailed me effectively? Thank you so much for hosting the Zoom seminar about effective email communication last week. My name is Sam, and I'm also a communication studies major at Vanderbilt. I found the session to be very helpful. While I haven't had much success with networking in the past, I now realize that there may be an issue with how I've been communicating over email. You mentioned that you would be open to speaking with students about creating a career path in digital. Would it be possible to set up a quick call? I'm available Thursday between 9 and 12 Eastern and Friday between 10 and 3 Eastern. Please let me know if any of these time slots work for you. Looking forward to connecting. Thanks, Sam. So, any thoughts on this email?
One thing I'll say to kick things off is one thing I noticed is putting the times you're available in the time zone of the person you're reaching out to. So it's a part of doing your research and figuring out who they are, where they work, and showing that background knowledge. So putting it in context, making it easier for them.
Great, great, great.
For me, I really like the form of the email because it's really clear and it leverage, as you shared before, like using paragraph and bullet point, and it's easy to spot what the person is asking for and easy for the person to respond back. Amazing.
Yeah, it's like if we're both communication study majors, then we already have this shared thing. So the probability of me blowing you off dips significantly, right? And I know, okay, great, you're asking for a quick call, happy to do it. These times work, and I probably what I would reply would just be a meeting invite. And this middle paragraph is important because I was able to really, or Sam, sorry, was able to really summarize the whole notion of the challenges that this person was facing in the previous email. Lots of outreach with no responses, no job, a lot of the challenges, right? Maybe feeling a little disheartening, but you can still share that. But there's nothing negative about this. It's just sort of the reality of what's going on. I haven't had much success, but I now realize something as a result of what you shared. So that's always great. So if in the seminar situation, you can pull something from the meeting, easy. If you're doing cold outreach, find something else. Do your research. Did they just release a new product, or did they make a big new hire? Are they featured in the news? Are they dealing with something? All kinds of things like that is all the same. Any other thoughts on this one? We leverage bullets for the possible time slots is a good one. Would it be possible to set up a quick call? It's super light. No pressure, but it's almost like, sure, we can do a call, no problem. Great. So this is a good kind of template to use for just general communications, no more than kind of these 4 lines like this. You can almost skim it at a glance. You can just look at it and you can literally read the email in like one glance, right? And all that really matters is, do these times work for you? Cool, great. All right, so coming full circle, Ryan is one of the alums that I reached out to. I found him on VU Connect. He was managing director of RGA in San Francisco. And I reached out to him as a cold outreach in 2009. And in putting this presentation together, I was going through my Gmail and I found the original email. And I'm sharing it with you guys because it worked. And he replied within 20 minutes, got the call, we talked for an hour, and he made a recommendation, explained about the role, and it's, haven't looked back since. So hi, my name is Andrew Schlanger, and I found your contact information on VU Connect. I'm graduating from Vanderbilt in 3 weeks with a major in communication studies and minors in Chinese and corporate strategy. I'm reaching out because I'm hoping you have a second to help a fellow soon-to-be alum out. I've researched RGA extensively, and the production assistant position seems to be an ideal way to sample the different departments of the organization. I know that you are a veteran of the company and see you were a PA as well, so I would love to hear a little bit more about your work and experience there. Attached is a copy of my resume, so you can see what I've been up to. Please let me know if we can schedule a call next week to connect. I appreciate your time. Thanks, Andrew. So this is the email that I use right off the bat. You can see I introduce myself. And the reason that he replied was, wow, I didn't know Vanderbilt had a corporate strategy department. They didn't have that 10 years ago when I was in school. That's really exciting. And we ended up talking for 20 minutes about the minor. But that was enough relatedness for him to reply to me. Researching the company extensively is great, but also I researched Ryan's LinkedIn and I saw that he started way at the bottom as a production assistant as well. Well, now we have that shared, and doing the production assistant role versus doing the internship role as a PA, I could really join whatever team I wanted to. If you join as an intern in a department, whether that's creative or production or technology or strategy, whatever the department is, you're locked into that. And in college, I didn't know what I wanted. I needed to kind of get in there and see everything and figure it out. It would be like me asking you in high school, what's your major? You know, I wasn't quite sure. So I needed a little bit of time to figure it out. So the PA gig, while a little bit challenging, was perfect for me. I leaned right in, attached my resume. Don't be afraid. Send the resume. Important. You don't want anyone to have to request that, especially if, you know, I want him to take the call and I want him to pass my information on. Just get that resume over the fence. This one was a little bit different. I didn't propose the times. You don't always have to. It's not horrible if you don't, but I wanted to keep the integrity of what I originally wrote, so I didn't include them. But you guys can use your judgment. You know? It's not necessarily perfect science, but I did say next week, and that I appreciate his time. So any questions or thoughts on this one? Cool. Well, yeah, this has been awesome sharing with you guys and talking. Paul can send the presentation to you guys if you wanted to just use those email templates as a framework to kind of have a starting point at least. But remember, if you ever feel like you have writer's block for an email, it's probably because you're not in the world of the receiver. And you're focused so much about what you're trying to get and not at all about what's the opportunity for them. It feels good to be of service to people, and it feels good to help people. People will want to help you if you allow them to help you. And that can be created through your communication. So let's talk. I'm happy to chat with you guys on effective communication, emailing, or career opportunities as well.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. Yes, as you mentioned, this session is recorded, and will be posted on Doorways as well. From a coaching standpoint and with the Career Center, if you ever have any questions or you're writing a few outreach emails and you want to get it read over, feel free to shoot it my way or some of our other career coaches that are assigned to your major. Any of us can really help you with that. So if you want some extra eyes to look at it before you send it out, we're more than happy to talk to you about that as well. So with that, Andrew, if you're available for a few more minutes, we'll open up the Q&A.
I'm available. Yeah. Any questions, guys? Please ask away.